been missing few weeks. Lots of things have changed. We all get busy at work, but anyway, we're doing the session again. We'll try to keep this Friday afternoon session, which feels like we are all sort of winding down. This is a good time to do the podcast. I do have a couple of announcements. I have a special guest today with Derek, old friend of mine. We are both from Columbus, Ohio. We've been connected. We explore brainstorm ideas. He is obviously very passionate about AI, blockchain. I remember first when I met you, we were exploring blockchain ideas. But he's always one of those guys that keep in touch with technology, tap how things are going. So we're changing format a little bit. Precious got really busy with his day-to-day. I mean, life happens, right? So going forward, Derek going to be our co-host in this podcast, and this is going to be really, really exciting. With that said, I'm going to hand over to Derek a little bit. So maybe take a few minutes to introduce yourself. What do you do? What's you passionate about?
Great. Derek Hodge, CEO of Hodge Luke. Currently, we're a deep tech research company. So in relation to AI, we're applying physics, theoretical physics and category theory to AI to create better frameworks and understanding, unlock the black box, make it a glass box. And I think that's the future. And I think most recent reports are coming out now saying the same thing, that scaling is not over, but I think the idea of scaling and it's some bottlenecks and some inflection points that are there that are bringing us back to the research and diving deeper because I think we got to come up with some new architectures. Especially as we start to move towards edge AI. So that's kind of where we at in that intersection. And we're positioning our business to really take part of that.
That's awesome. This also is an interesting thing. I want to highlight that previously we mainly used to focus on product releases and product updates, which we're still going to do. But I feel like over the years, the stories that had more macro level changes or deep changes that excites us, we're going to be focusing them on those stories more. With that said, I want to start with a very controversial topic today, which has been making rounds lately. If you are into investment on stock market, you obviously have noticed that lots of tech stocks are going down drastically, and this all happened. I guess the trigger was Anthropic released something called Cowork. So lots of people are talking about SaaS is dead. Now, there has been lots of arguments about this. And one of the fundamental reasons, and Derek, I would like to have your point of view on this too. One of the fundamental, I think, fear investor has at the same time, lots of folks and have that in the community is model providers like Anthropic and OpenAI. I mean, the models are showing drastic improvement in terms of reasoning and thinking. And we are seeing these companies are sort of dabbling into vertical space, right? Initially, we thought they're going to be very horizontal focused, and their company is going to build on top of that vertical focused AI solutions. But I mean, OpenAI is going to health, and Anthropic is doing stuff with lawyers and finance. So that's scaring lots of people out there. So I wanted to focus on. I'm sorry. Stop now. Go ahead, Derek. What's your thoughts on that?
You seen my wheels were spinning, but please continue.
All right. So I've captured some notes. So I'm going to share. So what we do is that as I go through the story, I'm going to drop those links on our chat channel in here, so you guys can take a look at it. So I've sort of picked up. There's been hundreds of posts on this. Okay, everybody's talking about the SaaS is dead. Forget about this and move on. So I found two interesting. Obviously, that's not true. I mean, right? I mean, there are going to be still SaaS companies. I mean, I refuse to believe there is one model company that's doing everything. That's just I cannot imagine that. But there are going to be changes. And one of the two things that I feel like is interesting, even though this is a developer-focused podcast, I know lots of developers in our audience are building product, including me, including you. So for me, it was very interesting to understand if I'm building a SaaS solution right now, what should I be thinking about this? So all this tend to boils down to, I like this sort of analogy to break it down. If you look at any typical SaaS solutions out there, there sort of fits into 3 layers. And most of them are very focused on last mile problem. So you're going to be focusing very much on last mile problem because middle and sort of intelligence layer is sort of taken care of by this model providers. So when you talk about last mile problems, the shortest last mile problems are, hey, I'm going to create a marketing copy for you, just copy paste. I'm going to be an image generation software for you, or content, I'm going to be generating content for you, blog. Clearly, those sort of companies going to have a hard time justifying themselves because models are really getting good at this. Then the second layer is coding assistant, or I'm going to review your contract. And then there are lots of companies out there. I mean, we talk about Harvey also, right? The company that builds solutions for lawyers and stuff. So all these are like, hey, I'm going to review a bunch of documents for you and contracts for you and give you help. This also becoming very, very thin because Anthropic have just released something for law, right, and finance. So they're sort of catching up on that space. Then you have all this, and I think the last two layer is what is slowly going to become the niche for the vertical focus AI startups, which are like something that's very internal to your workflow, right? The contract analysis and something that you're going to take liabilities of, right? You're just doing, let's say, tax compliance. Along with that, you're taking the responsibility that is going to be corrected. Everything goes wrong, I will take the responsibility. So anything those complicated, messy last mile problems is where I feel like vertical AI gonna stick to, because rest gonna sort of generalize. Well, what's your thoughts on this?
So I think we need to dig in. I think you started off right. The financial
Yeah,
markets are taking a hit. Most of the software companies are in the red right now, and
right.
the reason they're in the red is because agents are transacting on these platforms through the API and webhooks. So you
Mhm.
actually have basically a back end server side access to all the functionality that that platform offers. Now the reason is the human interface inside. They used to be able to charge for seats. So how many ever users were using that platform, they would charge you a $20, $25 or more, $200, $2,000 per seat. Well,
Right.
when the agents are going down there, it can be one agent that's acting almost as 10 or 20 people, or even sub agents that are using this API at a very, very cheap rate.
Mhm.
And being able to take a hold of any of the functionalities, retrieve information, create information, update information onto like Salesforce, right?
Right.
With your Slack, get your Slack channel,
Mhm.
get your emails, your
Mhm.
documents, notifications, and broadcasts. So when we see that, we got an agentic layer that's being layered over top of this stack. So the financial market used to be able to assess these SaaS companies, and these things had multiples of 10x, 20x, or whatever, because it was all subscription based. It was very easy to evaluate the risk on these applications because they was looking for a network effect. But if you
Mhm.
drop back now, if agent layer is tapping
Mhm.
into API and webhooks, what
Mhm.
it does is it removes the human from actually having to interact with the client side of the application,
Mhm.
right? So it's being
Mhm.
forced to be on the agentic side, which is very
Mhm.
good because
Mhm.
context switching, even for human beings, is the cognitive load of switching between Slack, Salesforce, Gmail, workspaces, and different stuff is an overload. We lose a lot of time and a lot of inefficiencies are right there. So when you take that inflection point out and you're handing it off to an agent that can smoothly go through and consolidate and compile that information into one report for you,
Mhm.
you're operating at a different level. So what happens is we have to engineer these things for agentic transactions to happen. So as agents, and I do believe this, there's going to be a huge proliferation of agents. There's going to be more agents online, and maybe even now more agents online than there are human beings,
Mhm.
right? Because
Mhm.
almost right now, and I know you probably got 10 of these things operating right now
Right.
online, hitting these
Right.
APIs, gathering
Right.
intelligence,
Right.
consolidating, so it can
Right.
give you strategic understanding of what to do next. When
So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, so what you're fundamentally saying is that the SaaS companies have to think about repricing it, right? The best typical one user, you're going to pay X amount of dollars, is not going to scale anymore.
No, so these applications are going to have to be agentic ready. So,
Mm.
and that means making your site, your platform, to be
Mhm.
digestible for agents, not just humans.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
we will see less human connections on those. So that network effect and being able to price
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
applications, Salesforce or
Yeah.
whatever they are, they're gonna have a significant drop. So it's a
Right.
repricing of these SaaS platforms. Not that the SaaS
Right.
is dead, because these SaaS
Right.
platforms are solving particular key problems, and the organization
Right.
has already adopted it and integrated within the fabric of their organization. So it's not going
Right.
to go
Right.
away fast. But what
Right.
it costs is, so it's a repricing, or I like what you said earlier when we was offline talking, indexing. These things are going
Right.
to be re-indexed. So the market is already doing a adjustment on predicting in the future what these things are, and they're dip.
Right.
These things aren't
Right.
going to be valued what they were at the 10x,
Right.
20x. So when building the SaaS, if you're not building the SaaS on an agentic layer to where you're going to see these atomic layers,
Mhm.
these atomic transactions happening, you're going to fall behind. As a matter of fact, I tell you what we're essentially doing, because we're already back in the terminal. We're already back in 1980, back in the terminal. Most of us are developers are operating within the
Mhm.
terminal now, called code, open code. These things are putting us back in the terminal, which they don't have to worry so much about that chatbot interface. That's kind
Right.
of
Right.
going away. We're back in
Right.
this, and now that we're back in the terminal, we're dealing with code, command line, so on and so forth. And what's interesting about this is we're going to have to start building a protocol for agents
Yeah.
and get our sites. What does that mean? Back in 1980, we had to have the HTTPS, was a
Right.
protocol layer that had to be
Right.
happening exchange for these exchanges to happen smoothly.
Yeah.
What we're going to see is Google, who recently,
Yeah.
I think was it this year or late last year, they released what's called UCP,
Right.
the Uniform Commercial. Matter of fact, let's look it up. If you can look it up, let's go to that real quick. Are you able to share your screen, or we're not supposed to do that yet?
We can. I mean, once you load the page, maybe that's a better idea to share that. So you're saying that, so the unified payment transaction. So I will look it up while you do the next story. But so to sort of summarize, to step back, I mean, we have a bunch of, so this is interesting because that's what surprised me too. I mean, this is the facts, right? So I own a few Microsoft shares, right? So Microsoft recently made an announcement that their their quarter was really good. They were more they did better than what people were expecting. In spite of all that,
And they
the
still
stock
did. They still did.
and in your traditional sense will say, hey, if your revenue is going up, your value should go up. I mean, that's the normal traditional way of thinking, right? When I looked at it, why is going deep? I had no reason, because now I understand why it was, because people are thinking that the way these companies have made profits so far, they're not going to be able to continue to make that much of a margin because of the agent, like Derek said, the agent layer is going to force these companies to reprice. And that is essentially fundamentally what's happening. Just to summarize then if you are one of those founders and developers or product engineer who's trying to build product right now, and you think SaaS is the way to go, so with all this, I'm going to share this link. It fundamentally goes down to what you should pay attention to. And I pointed out two things here that sort of make sense. One, your moat, right? Your moat going to be your state. If you're building a product where you own the ledger, you have access to the audit trail, some internal data set that is not owned by model or any other third-party provider, then you have something unique that you can stick to. It will be harder for this model providers get into, right? And the second thing that's coming over and over again is the liability. You cannot no longer build a workflow solution saying, I help you to take data from here to here. I mean, Anthropic Cowork have set up plugins. So you just can drop plugin. Now suddenly Claude can talk to Salesforce and Excel, right? So that's not going to work. What's going to work is that if you can own the outcome, and this is very fundamentally important. So if you're building a financial app or accounting app, you say that I'm going to certify this result. If something goes wrong, I own the outcome. I'm just not helping you achieve your goal. I'm going to get you into that result, right? I'm going to own the outcome. I think that's going to fundamentally be more defensible. So almost like things of your product is like an insurance, then suddenly you can charge more. So it's a kind of sort of a change in mindset. And that's sort of becoming also another critical thing, Derek, I think, right? Building product is becoming so easy now. Then I think most of the thinking you should now pay attention to this kind of thing. What kind of product I can build so that I can still be defensible against these model providers?
You know that, and you're hitting upon something very strong here, owning that outcome, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm seeing the same similar thing. For instance, in coding, coding is probably the most disruptive space right now, where AI is disrupting, and you're going to see loss of jobs within that or a diminishing of how much people are getting paid to be able to do these jobs because AI is writing so much code. But what we've seen is that AI creates a lot of slop, right? So AI is generating a lot of slop. It drifts, right? So even if you got specifications,
Yeah.
is the product or the outcome of that product turning out the way you intended based upon those specifications? So
Mhm.
specifications are going to become a huge factor on how well you can develop and how fast you can develop, right? To
Right.
create these specs. That's a big one. But if your product is, if a SaaS that you're putting out there is just an orchestration layer that creates a better UI, you have a very weak, right? Moat.
Mhm.
You don't have a moat at all. You just have a thin layer, which
Mhm.
you're highly at risk for disruption. That's
Yeah.
one, right?
Agreed.
Now, if you pull back, let's even go deeper in that outcome because that was pivotal. If you
Yeah.
think about this, what a person should be focused on is how can I get these agents to control drift and the entropy. So entropy is the uncertainty of building these products, right? So as these
Mhm.
agents are building, I want to have such tight constraints, specifications, constraints, rules that are so tight that the agent doesn't have to have that huge, guessing of what it should be
Mhm.
doing or how it should, adopt a certain technology and implementation. You want to reduce the entropy in that. So you're minimizing entropy there in
Mhm.
order to produce a product. But if you can figure out, if you're building a product and it's dealing with coding, forget the
Yeah.
orchestration layer, forget the pretty
Mhm.
UI,
Yeah.
move into how can I make
Yeah.
sure like these projects are being
Yeah.
delivered, that these
Yeah.
things are being able to be monitored and observed, not just
Yeah.
by humans, but
Yeah.
to control the drift and the uncertainty
So
within it.
this is
So whoever does that is going to have a stronger moat
yeah.
because
Yeah, yeah. So you brought up a really good point. I've been thinking about too. I mean, going back to another example, Figma, amazing company, and I've lately have
hold on.
seen.
What does their share look like right now? I think they
Yeah,
lost about 50% share, right?
yeah.
Right now,
I still remember the IPO day, the when they launched the how much that value went up. So that goes also fundamentally like we people are doing like an so on the spot designing, right? The whole workflow of designing to build to produce has kind of shrinking into right. I mean, so
that cycle is shortened, right? The
yeah,
horizon.
yeah, so this is exactly that's going back to what Derek was talking about, right? How if you're focusing on workflow, look at how workflows are getting disrupted, and that's something to worry about. Now, speaking of workflow, I'm going to move to the next story, which is sort of tied to that. So I've been told that I'm a very Anthropic fan. Obviously, Cloud has been doing lately news. They're doing lots of products. So this time I have an OpenAI story. So OpenAI recently released, and I have lots of complaints about them. They're doing lots of interesting product launches, but I want to see them follow through. Right? I want to see some of this product really mature. But anyway, so they've released something called OpenAI Frontier. So this is exactly what Derek was talking about, a orchestration, a layer where you can manage your AI agents. The way they've been positioning this is that onboard agents like employees. Now, this is a real problem, guys. I mean, I think we are past that point where companies are looking into AI. We are at the point that companies wants to implement AI solutions, right? They're heavily interested in building local agents, heavily invested in building AI agents, automating their workflow. Where I think most of the companies are struggling, and OpenAI is right to build product around that, is productionizing them. It's like Derek said, it's super easy to vibe code something from 0 to 80%. At least that's what I believe. Last 20% needs serious engineering work because your model going to drift. You have to do lots of evals testing, understanding some serious engineering work. And there are lots of companies I have noticed in enterprise that fail. So what they're trying to do with this open AI frontier is sort of providing almost like a cloud environment, but for AI agents. So imagine a place where you can drop those agents in. Either you can build using their tool, like create agent, vibe code an agent, then drop those agent in that environment that provides them the unified context. And this context is everything for these agents, right? And we have talked about this many times. What OpenAI is trying to do with this frontier is that this context allows these agents to access all the company internal data sources, maybe your Salesforce, maybe your HubSpot, maybe your Jira board. All this data are shared in a sort of secured environment so that these agents can operate. And you can, on top of that, do performance review on these agents. So this sort of looks like a real product that's solving real problem, right?
Yeah, well, OpenAI, I'm tired of OpenAI chasing. I think we're
New shiny thing.
yeah, OpenAI has a identity issue. You don't know what they are. Are they a
Yeah.
chatbot? Are they a browser? Are they a
Mhm.
hardware company? You know, they moving into hardware. I don't know what they are. They don't have this. Why you probably like Claude so much is because Claude has a very hardened. They almost say true to the mission here. They know
Mhm.
that coding, and they went after coding, and they drilled down on coding.
They're slow and steady, I mean, which is important. They
Slow
make
and
sure the
steady.
product. Mhm.
So you got this sporadic all over the place with OpenAI. So that's kind of and they're just burning through money. You know what I mean? Burning through money because they're trying to find grounding. They're trying to find where they actually fit in. I think they lost the enterprise war. They lost that
Yeah.
because the last release of OpenAI 5.
But
Was it
this
2?
feels like could be a good comeback for them. This is classic. I mean, this is a spot where they're going to be competing with Google AWSs of the world, right?
All right, let me give you some pushback on that.
Yeah.
Cloudflare has already solved this problem and has done it effectively and efficiently. Because there's no security. One of the biggest things, like even with OpenClaw, was a security issue with
Mhm.
OpenClaw, right? The tunneling, the networking,
Correct.
hackers that got
Correct.
on, some
Yeah.
of our crypto has got on there,
Yeah.
and some huge exploits and huge hacking on that.
Yeah. All the skills were. Mhm.
Agents also need authentication permissions set.
Yeah.
Cloudflare already offers that zero trust out the box. Containerization is already offered through Cloudflare for agents to actually develop in isolated sandboxes, right? Control sandboxes, and then only push that stuff out, the stuff that is out, that's good
Yeah.
out. So Cloudflare has solved this problem and then solved it at scale. OpenAI, they're late to the game. This is as them. They got to throw something out there to keep their market shares open. This is a financial
Yeah.
play, but they're not
Yeah.
committed to this. When I
I
swear,
don't see
go
that.
back,
That's right.
they go
That's
back six
right.
months from now and see if they're committed to it. They're not committed.
Yeah.
They're just trying to. They're playing catch up. They're in cold war. They're in
That's an issue. I
yeah.
agree. I agree. Commit, but you nailed it. I mean, I see this is great, but will they follow through? But there's one thing that I've noticed that this company started doing. This is another buzzword: forward deployed engineers, which I never thought OpenAI will do it, but lots of product makes sense, right? They have a professional services wing, and that's what they're using to deploy this. I do see in my notes that there are some companies, including HP, Intuit, Oracle, and State Farm, and others, are using this. So I'm pretty sure they're testing this out in real world. So we have to wait and see whether they follow through this or not.
Absolutely not. These companies are absolutely not taking a risk of integrating. Let me tell you something. When an OpenAI model changes, there are certain
Yeah,
significant changes when these models change that can break that production pipeline, that the model's behavior is dramatically changed. This is the inconsistency integrity issue. The hallucinations is the number one biggest failure for why enterprise is not adopting this technology as fast and putting it
yeah,
into the pipelines. Now they may have some little use case or pilot that's bubbling right there. And of course, OpenAI is going to say, no, they're adopting it. Just like they said, NVIDIA is going to do $100 billion. And that was just a paper deal with a letter of intent. I don't believe
yeah.
anything coming out of this company. I
That's
don't
true.
believe
Yeah, yeah,
I do think that does not negate that the use case, but this use case has already been out there. They're just late.
correct.
They just late adopters is trying to put it out to play catch up. So,
Yeah,
but I do believe that like HP, Intuit, Oracle, these enterprises are salivating for a solution, right? A agentic solution. A code. There's the use case is real. That's not to
agree.
knock it. I think OpenAI just isn't outfitted to be able to actually, knock this out the box. I
Yeah,
think that's Anthropic has shown time and time again. They're the ones that can actually be the trailblazers and pioneer this. That's why they just got an investment. When you're talking about finances, they just did a $30 billion, $380 billion
yeah,
valuation, raised $30 billion. Elon can't even raise that. Elon is the richest man in the world, and he can't raise $30 billion for his XAI. Matter of fact, he's got the big resignation happening. I think if you look at the news, the big resignation is happening at XAI as it's being acquired by SpaceX,
yeah.
meaning some of the top founders are all leaving XAI,
Yeah.
and that's got to do with culture. That ain't got to do with
Yeah.
technology. It's
Yeah.
got to do with the culture that they're
Yeah.
submitted to over there. That I think, and that's a big thing with enterprise. Me and you both know that.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
just
no, I love this. Yeah, I love this. We have to be controversial. I agree with you. I agree that I think Anthropic has done really, really well. Even though I was a little worried about them, I think the biggest problem of OpenAI is distribution. I mean, Google has a huge distribution, right? I mean, their biggest competitor is Google. I think Anthropic is playing a whole new different game altogether. And if an OpenAI is trying to position itself, Google already have cloud infrastructure, clients. They have huge distribution.
and they
I
also got
think,
$400 billion in the bottom line cash revenue that they don't.
yeah. I
They
mean,
can
I
give.
think,
They can give
yeah,
AI away for free, not hurt, and
yeah.
still make more revenue than
So I
all.
mean, yeah, like whole thing about. I mean, you saw that in Super Bowl, right? Anthropic made this ad that we will never run ads. I mean, that was just a slap to their face. I mean, OpenAI going to ads is essentially telling you how they're struggling with the business model.
That's a,
And
that's the key thing. They're struggling over there, so they're not committed. I think the use case is a phenomenal use case. I think it is
yeah,
imperative, but I just
yeah,
don't think this is a company that is committed to
yeah,
drive this home and make it a
yeah,
winner for all of us. And
yeah.
as far as enterprises, again, it's too difficult. They're not outfitted for this. They're struggling. And the moment they said, I think there was something that Sam Altman said. He said he actually made a comment that if he runs ads, it's over. Right?
Yeah. I saw that. I saw that.
We should play that
Yeah,
because that's real funny.
yeah. I'll make sure. I'll keep a note of it. I'll try to do it. Keep those references together.
But
All
I
right.
want to
That's
say that. Hold on, before you move
enough.
on.
Slam out
Before
open.
you,
Okay.
hold on,
Fine.
before you move on.
Okay. Okay.
This ties in some of the stuff with what you're talking about, and I've seen you do it. I think for developers, if you spend more time, if you front load and spend more time on narrowing the specifications, then these things can operate almost fully autonomously, right?
Mm,
And go for days, not just hours, but for days off a solid spec, right?
mm.
So specifications is so critical, and I've seen you do it. You front load a lot of that work, and you
Yeah.
just it's like winding it up and just rip it, let it rip. And
Right.
I think that's what's going to probably lead us into the next conversation here, the next piece.
Yeah. Okay. So there is, yes. So now I feel like you and I are in tech space, right? So we are obviously sort of drinking from the hose here, right? Of all
Yeah.
the news and coming in. But obviously there are, and we all have, we have friends, family, all not actively involved in tech. Now, the reason to include this, I usually don't include assets like this, but this one from Matt Schumer, has
Yeah.
went viral on X in last week or so. And one of the reasons for that is, and we will have to spend way too much time on this because it's not targeted to our audience. Our audience are all tech. But it was interesting to highlight, and we see that all the time, that I mean, what he's essentially talking about is fundamentally the types of, I mean, there will be lots of jobs going to disappear. And you and I talked about this already. And I think we're going to start to see this year going to be very pivotal in that. There will be lots of fundamental shift. Agents going to be very real because we are slowly getting this orchestration layer that Derek was talking about, kind of in place. Cloudflare, OpenAI is doing it, Google, AWS all have it. So it will be easier for companies to deploy agents and drastically see some benefits coming out of this. That would mean on the other end, the lots of jobs, especially the junior assistant, I take this to that, sort of jobs going to start to disappear. And Matt sort of shares this. So essentially goal of this articles is to kind of share with your non-technical friends, right, who are not in touch with what fundamentally is changing. And one thing that I really like, and I see that all the time when I'm demoing Claude Code, I'm saying how heavily I'm invested in AI, changed my way I build things. And you're usually going to see complaint like, oh, it hallucinates. AI give me wrong answer. And all of those are fundamentally based on something someone tried 6 months back and didn't have a good experience. What this article sort of highlights is that 6 months is a long time in this space. In 6 months, Opus 4.6 happened, and Sonnet changed. Drastically, the the releases are fundamentally shifting the quality of output these products are producing. So, and he refers something that I really liked, which is METR metrics, which is a model evaluation and threat research. For people who doesn't know this is a non-profit research organization. So its purpose is non-profit is very critical to know. This is not done by Anthropic or OpenAI just to show that AI is going to, because it's in their interest. But this is a non-profit organization which sort of takes all these frontier AI models like Opus 4.5, Codex 5.3, all this top of the line models, and put them on real tasks. And these tasks are like a real long running. I mean, you have to do 20 or 100 different things to accomplish this. And what they have noticed is that the task completion horizon means what takes a human to do versus AI are drastically shrinking on every run they do. So that's the good demonstration of how these models are getting better and better, which should be sort of a reality check for lots of people that, hey, either you're on the bus or you are not, right? I mean, because market is drastically changing.
I think is this pertaining also to the compiler where Anthropic recently had just?
We can talk about that. We can talk about that. Go ahead. Share that story.
Is that related to this? Does that happen to be related to this or no?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I like this metric. This is the first time I came across this metric. I think we were already suffering, just as human beings. We was already suffering where colleges and schools that we rely on the educators to keep us abreast. So when we go into the marketplace, we're valuable, right, within that workforce. College and school is pretty much deprecated, and it's almost obsolete in certain trades. Skills were expiring. As soon as you learn a skill, your skill was 2.5 years before it was just worthless. You had to relearn. So as human beings, just in the marketplace, the way things were already moving, it was already 2.5 years as humans just before we had to upskill ourselves again in the marketplace to stay in the marketplace. Now you're talking about this exponential, right? Where AI is improving exponentially, right? That so fast.
Yeah, look at this graph in here. So every model that means this is a progress. So one way to think about this is that if this is that is a 50% in time horizon, that means if it takes 1 hour for human to do the task, AI is doing it 30 minutes. So that's what fundamentally, and this is not like one-shot prompting, guys. And they over time also increase the complexity of the task. In spite of that, you see the growth that's happening. This is a real shift. It's not like I tried model, it failed. This is stupid. I mean, we are beyond that point. This is getting serious. That means, like Derek is saying, either we fundamentally shift back into how we're teaching kids in school to if you're a junior whatever, assistant, programmer, developer, what have you, I think it's benefit, your responsibility is now to get better at using this tools as fast as possible. Because that's how you have to demonstrate your value. Otherwise, things gonna change.
So this is first of all, this is great. It's the first time I came across this, so I appreciate you even sharing that. What it makes me think of is, so when we're talking about this agentic layer, there's an opportunity even there. Cognitive load. So we know that context windows and everything is an issue with the cognitive load. So we try to parse out. And when we parse it out, like instead of just having one big model to try to keep the whole code base inside of his head to try to in one shot go and get it done, breaking things down into subtasks and then assigning and delegating that work. So where one agent is orchestrating other agents. But the key is, how many agents can a human being actually orchestrate themselves before it becomes too much, right? So I remember talking to you. I think you run 3 on a regular, maybe up to 10 at a time. There's a certain cognitive load that it has on us.
Oh yeah, it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
So now, if we take that as a critical point, and someone was to think about how to solve that, because there's this thing going around that, and I think even Sam Altman has said it, and I think it's completely wrong. It's naive, but one person $1 billion company, a $1 person $1 billion company.
I think that's going to happen, though.
Well,
I believe in that.
but the cognitive load is too much to keep that many track of. Even if you got managerial agents that have a specific domain, like if we break out the software, end-to-end software, we got.
But wait. But let's translate that. If you own $1 billion company right now, instead of agents, you're going to have hundreds of employees. You're not doing work of 100 employees, right? You delegate work. So I think the time to realize that it'll be how fast we can make these agents more reliable, right?
But how many people does the CEO right now have to listen to, and how big of a cognitive load is that for a CEO just to listen to 10 of the C-suite people?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So
yeah.
And if you are one person trying to manage, that is not going to, for instance, maybe hit 10 million.
Well, we're gonna layer this, Derek, right? We're gonna have a 10 developer agent, then one project manager agent, then you just manage the product. We're just reinvent the hierarchy again.
Right. So you're going to have to create the digital twin of it, because the typology right now that's in the field right now is flat. What I mean by that is, when a lot of these people are just coding, they say, hey, I need a developer agent. Hey, I need a product agent. Hey, I need an architect agent, API agent. But it's very, they don't understand that an API agent has to do research. So you actually need a research agent in between there. You see what I mean? So there's hierarchies within each of those that people aren't really setting up. And then when they realize it is, you can't even, like, if you take a human organization, I think this is something you were saying too. If you take a human organization currently, a software development team that's producing about 25 million annual return of revenue, right? Has about 190 roles. Roles of people that's operating within those roles in order to get to 25 million, right? That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to have to mirror that same thing with agents and more, right?
Yeah.
So, what I'm trying to say,
we might not have to. Yeah, I mean, we might not have to, because like we're going to have a poly-skill, like agents could be poly-skill. All the models are capable of doing multiple things anyway. So
yeah, sure. But I'm saying you still got to assign a role, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I know it's a theoretical discussion right now. Obviously, there are lots of innovations. I think the step change needs to happen. Like you're saying, maybe we have to find a different architecture. But I mean, I'm just talking about, hey, we got AGI already, and here we go, right? I mean, if we bring an AGI in there, then we are just saying that they will figure it out, right?
Well, here's something. Here's something, and I don't want to stop. I want us to move on, but here's something to think about: is if OpenAI had anything close to AGI, they wouldn't have the problems that they have right now financially, because they should be able to just ask the model, right, the AGI, how to solve these problems.
Right. Well, this is interesting, though. I mean, there is a multi geometric progression happening in some way. I think that's also another fear added to the first story of why markets are all tech stocks are down, because I mean, in Anthropic Codex is right. I mixed two things. In Anthropic, Claude is right. They're using Claude to generate the next version of Claude. The OpenAI is doing similar thing, right? The release of these features are faster and faster because of this coding agent.
Hold on.
So I mean, it's just,
but don't confuse speed with performance.
Don't
confuse the recursiveness, because they had just made OpenAI had came out with another model that was worse than the one before. So we can't always we can't we gotta
this just gives a dedicated discussion around this. I do have some thoughts around this and strong opinions. Maybe we should step back, but there is something that I'm gonna use segue as that we mentioned, that there is a cognitive load, and this actually showed up. This is not just I am feeling it. I was thinking about that because now that I use multiple Claude sessions at the time, I mean, now my end of the day, I feel more exhausted and tired. It reminds me back in days when I used to do pair programming. When I was consulting, I always have one guy sitting next to me or using the same keyboard to work together. Those are very, very cognitive load because you don't get break. Like you're coding all the time, right? I get the same kind of feeling now because models are outputting, that's asking for a plan mode, that's asking for clarification. I'm just sort of jumping all the time. There is no slack built in. And there is an article that I found, which was sort of interesting from Harvard Business Review here, that they did a study, 8-month study on a company with 200 people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the employees were given, not mandated, by the way, given enterprise subscription. I don't know which AI solution. They had an access to AI. And what they have noticed is that that in 2 days, for the in-depth, they did lots of, there was lots of stuff. They have lots of interviews to collect data and whatnot. What actually happened is that the workload actually increased. There are a couple of things happen. I can relate to this though. That is that, getting spam call. Relate to this, that employees started taking more work beyond their responsibility. So for an example, someone else, AI fills up the knowledge. Since AI fills up the knowledge of your product manager, designers, so now you're sort of spanning beyond your sort of quote unquote responsibilities. So that sort of adds more work. And there is another thing that happens with AI co-pilots, right? And I don't know whether you noticed, there is an interesting scope creep happens all the time. That because now when you plan something, you'll say, by the way, if you do this, that will be really good. Now, since you're not generating code, who cares? I said yes all the time, right? So I know there might be a better way to build MVP, but I'm always doing scope creep, adding new stuff all the time, new validation, new tools. That also adds up more work to that. So then, and the third one, which I just already explained, is multitasking. People are using this AI to do multiple things at the time. So the net, you're actually more stressed using AI.
Yeah,
Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, that's where an opportunity lies to create solutions to help offload the cognitive load. That is a huge, because it's a problem that we face that most of us are unaware that we even have, right? Because while we're in the weeds, we're not thinking about it. We're just getting it done. So yeah, I think it's a problem that we need to address. It's a problem that is worth solving, because I think it has longevity. Because as these things continue to ramp up, we're going to become more and more exhausted trying to keep track and observe at the speed that they can go at, because really they can go a lot faster. We're the ones that are the bottleneck in the system. And I think we're going to realize
we want. I mean, I did a post. Maybe I should link it somewhere here. This models might not have a token limit, but we do, right, in our head. I mean, there is just so much information we can process at the end. I mean, the brain gets exhausted after some time. Now, you mentioned that I do spend lots of time in planning. That could be another reason, because planning is a very involved step, right? It's not just writing if conditions and else conditions. Right? I have to think through multiple variations of, if I do this, if I take this decision right now, what's going to happen to that? So that might be another reason why I'm so exhausted, because so much thinking goes on. I'm thinking more these days versus working. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And we need to be able to. I wonder if is there a way we could even measure that? Is there some way we can even measure our day to day? I mean, that'd be a metric that would be very fascinating, but also important metric to realize how much cognitive load, because there's a thing with high stress should be high relaxation. Are we breaking enough in order to maintain before burnout? Because there's times where I'm so deep in math, so deep in code, so deep in this stuff that I can go 12, 16 hours and it doesn't even seem like it. But then at that point, I have to defragment. I have to decompress. And I don't think I'm getting enough of it done. So actually my work starts to diminish.
Oh yeah, I get sloppy. I mean, I've seen that too. I get more, I less review my plans at the end of the day. I say yes, accept all sort of thing. So it does happen. I mean, but that's the reality. Even though, I mean, I think that's what I think you have to be very careful about, because this is what I hate when businesses say, okay, what does that say? Yeah, oh, you will be doing creative work. I mean, I'm so tired of hearing that. Oh, AI is not going to replace your job. It's going to do boring stuff, and you'll do the creative work. I mean, how much creative work I can do in a day? There is a limit, right? I'm going to get exhausted. In a biological sense, and I did a research on this too, so that I can say something smart against those people. They said every day human get this, like, we got a quota, we got a token limit of like an hour or so, or 2 hours every day. So 2 hours every day we get this productivity sort of tokens that we can use throughout the day. So after 2 hours, I'm kind of done. I'm maxed out. Just because this AI, I can run 100 clouds that doing 100 different things, doesn't mean I can manage them. I'm exhausted, right? I mean, that's the limit here.
Well, okay, so, and I totally agree with this, right? And I think there are some solutions that are going to come out, or we should start thinking about.
Yeah.
One of the things is the bottleneck is that we type into a terminal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to communicate our thoughts, and
Yeah.
we're slowing our thoughts. We think faster than we can actually type.
So
We
there
think
is a solution for
faster than we
that.
can
I just don't use it. There is lots of developers use Whisper. I don't know whether you have
because
started using it.
you can talk faster than you
Yeah.
can type, right? So
Yeah.
Whisper can be connected, but hold on, there is which is called like brain interfaces that is
Yeah.
starting to read, and I think you can actually go on. People can actually start experimenting with this. Facebook actually has data sets and stuff. You can actually you want to start to converge where the things you can think faster. You can feed
Yeah.
that to the model,
Yeah.
right? The transformer faster, and
Yeah.
having commands communicated that way. We got to start
Yeah.
learning how to interface where we can start to remove some of that bottleneck,
Yeah.
which is like typing or talking out the way, and really
Yeah,
start.
my fingers hurt. I mean, the one of the reason I haven't gone to Whisper is that because I tend to work in a very sort of noisy environment. Like, it's going to be really stupid if somebody looks at me. I'm constantly talking to my computer like this,
Right.
but I totally see value. I mean, I'm very tempted to try on Whisper. I'm just a little bit worried whether it will be able to manage with my accent, because I have an accent. But I'm definitely, we have to buy for it, right? It's not free, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some unique opportunities where this market is going to go. We're going to start seeing cognitive companies come up where they're
Yeah.
cognitive companies are going to be companies that are mostly semi to fully autonomous agents that are running it.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
think
dude,
that's
I've seen an amazing story about that. We'll talk about that next week. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
so that's a setup for next week. But I
Yeah.
think in the market, we're seeing this bifurcation in the market
Mhm.
that's happening. That's that's changing the model. So what happens? Innovation isn't necessarily the tech stack underneath. It's
Right.
really the business model that changes.
Right.
That's where innovation happens at. Because
Right.
tech layers, you can cherry pick between what you want to use, really, and
Yeah.
most of them are going to produce similar, either par or exceed some of what you're choosing. But at the
Right.
end of the day, it's your business model.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is artificial intelligence is not just changing the stack, it's
Yeah.
changing business models. And I think
Hmm.
we need a better picture, a better framework
Hmm.
for the next 5 to 10 year, what these business models should look like. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that, people can
Yeah.
actually study and do reports on that'd be
Right.
worthwhile.
Right. Right. For sure. For sure. Now we do have a two interesting story. One, both of them are very exciting. Low. We don't have to do much. Um, we don't have to go much deep into it. Both of them are sort of a product announcement, but interesting. The first one I have is that I really like this. I mean, this is why it's so hard to beat Google. I mean, I remember those days when Perplexity and OpenAI both released an AI browser. I don't know where they are right now. I downloaded one, I opened it, and I feel like, why would I even use this? But anyway, but Chrome can just like that make it everything sort of AI enabled. So anyway, so there is a new specification out called WebMCP, which is coming in Chrome 146. That's a version number. I think it's behind a flag. You have to enable that flag. When you do that, is it turns every web page, every website into an MCP tool, which is fascinating to me because, I mean, going back to what Derek was saying over and over again, right? Most of our, in the future, the biggest group of users on the web going to be AI agents accessing, searching stuff, not humans, agents, right? So obviously, Web MCP is geared towards that. How can we make our existing websites agent friendly? One way that we're solving this problem right now is, as you guys know, we are scraping pages. AI agents going in, scraping pages. That's what Claude does. They have a Chrome extension that scans the page, all DOM parsing and all that. If you're one of those developers who have ever written a web scraping tool, you know how complicated and noisy, how difficult, painful that exercise is, because every website is a different. If they change the layout, suddenly your code breaks. So what this is doing, that Web MCP, is sort of making a declarative API in HTML. So you can tag something through your JavaScript or through an API. I think Cloudflare was also something doing that with an accept header markdown or something. Anyway, so it's going to turn suddenly any web page, website into an MCP tool that agent can access to directly without going through the DOM parsing. So, which I thought was really, really cool idea.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to say is that what we're going to be experiencing in this market is there's going to be a proliferation of agents, more agents than there are human beings, more agents transacting than human beings can transact online, right?
I'm not very happy with that wall, though. I'm not very excited about it.
It doesn't matter. It's here.
I know.
Hold on. Stop. I was in your class. You was teaching about teaching people how to build agents.
Yeah.
I was in your class. And you were interrupted by one of your agents.
Yeah.
You had just did the contract. I think it was something on Fiverr or something. It said, "Hey, just to let you know, we got the job." It had found it, got the contract, and then it told you how much money it was. I was like, okay, if anybody's sitting in this class don't understand the value of what just happened. Right. And I think it was using your browser at that. I think.
Right. Browser.
So I don't know. Maybe you're holding back. You're stingy, obviously, because, you know, at MCP, you were already doing this. And that was almost a year ago or so that you.
But this makes it standard, right? I mean, what I was doing is an ugly hodgepodge of things. Right. Now it makes it standard for any agency to do that.
Yeah. Well, your hodgepodge was making you money. So.
So anyway, guys, this is the future now. I mean, your website. I like the approach too. It's not we're going to rewrite every freaking thing that we ever produce. No, we just sort of start annotating things, and it's suddenly going to become a consumable. Which goes back to the whole idea of, I don't know whether you are excited about the semantic web, right? So the whole theory of the web going to be suddenly composable. I can take your profile page from LinkedIn as a component, combine that with your buying habits, and suddenly build a interesting profile about a customer, right? All this great ideas now will totally be possible because MCP tools are going to be composable with each other. I thought that was really interesting.
No, there was Vercel. Vercel had recently just dropped an article. It was called AEO for AI Engine Optimization. Right?
What is it called?
AEO, which is, they had just made it. Vercel's really trailblazing this agentic. So Next.js applications will be able to use AEO, which is AI engine optimization, instead of search engine optimization. They use AEO, which is going to make your entire site, consumable for artificial intelligence to digest and use. And I think it's which again is making their tech stack look even better when it's kind of already baked in and built in. And I see a trend where most of these sites are going to have to start using this AEO in order for these agents to transact, especially if you got a commerce site, an e-commerce site. These agents are going to be making purchases on behalf of humans, and they kind of fumble along when it's in the browser format. They kind of have this stumble, not knowing what to click on. Some things can be read a label and the label's not really appropriated for what they think it is, and that just burns through tokens. But when you have this, an agent will know within milliseconds. They don't need minutes and hours to shop. They don't care about the pretty UI. They just they're going to make decisions in milliseconds to be able to transact. So your website, if you build an e-commerce site, which most of these sites are, it's got to be consumable for artificial intelligence. And this is one of the ways in which I think Vercel is addressing that.
Yeah,
It's a great article.
This is very cool. So Vercel is a company behind Next.js, and they what are the products they do? They have lots of interesting products. V0, obviously. So obviously, this is a company to recognize. Just sharing that because lots of people don't know. They know Next.js, they don't know the company behind it. These guys are the guys. They also recently, and I think Derek shared that with me too. I mean, they released a bunch of posts about how to write skills, or they released a skills library for Claude, I think, that will help Claude to write better Next.js code. So definitely check them out, guys. It's an awesome company. So the last story, maybe controversial because lots of people got really upset with this one. I didn't. I thought that was mind-blowing. So as a programmer, I mean, back in days, right? Back in days, kids, back in days, we used to open an IDE, type in code one by one. I know you guys don't do that anymore, but we used to consider the people who were building compilers are the top of the line. They are the top 1% in the world because building compiler is hard. It's not easy. It's not. I take JSON and render something on the web page. So I liked how Anthropic took that as a challenge, saying like, hold my beer. And they released Claude to build the C compiler from scratch. And one thing I want to share here, which I thought was really interesting, this was a clean room experiment. That means Claude didn't have access to internet. Okay. Only thing Claude had access to is a Rust standard library, which probably implemented basic functions and features they wanted. Just based on that Claude built a C compiler that was able to, ready for this? That was able to compile Linux kernel code. So the whole thing took 16 agents. So they were running agents in parallel. 2,000 odd Claude, the stats are impressive. 2,000 odd Claude code sessions, 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks. So going back to saying these agents are now very much optimized on long-running tasks. It cost them around $20,000. It wrote 100,000 lines of compiler code, which took around 2 billion input. Those stats are impressive. And 140 million output tokens. This compiler just compiles Linux kernel code, compile a bunch of stuff, and even better, it was able to compile and run Doom, which was back in days a famous computer game. What so is that we're done, right? I mean, is it time to go back to farming or what?
So I said go back to farming. No, because that's already being
it's already done.
Automated. But tell me something. Why I'm going to give you my reason, but what really strikes you most about this? What really hit hard for you?
The complexity. It's not just build me a SaaS app, vibe code an app. This is build a freaking compiler, which is not trivial. It's a very complicated process. Engineers took years. How many years it took to build this compiler? I was looking at the stat, 10 years or something. Okay, granted, there are lots of fine points in here I want to mention. Otherwise, I'm going to get crap for this. Obviously, this compiler was not really optimized because one of the biggest thing about building compiler is also making sure compiler produce a very machine efficient code. What I've read is that code that this Claude generated, C compiler generates is not very efficient. Those are those last 20% engineering work, guys. That's still not automated. That takes years to figure out how to optimize bytecodes, right? So I'm not taking away that. I mean, that's still high respect. But just building something that compiles Linux kernel code is just next level.
No, absolutely. So let me contextualize it even more if I can, right?
Okay, sure.
So the government had been looking to get rid of C++ because of the security issues with C++, right? huge security issues. If anybody's worked with C++, it's not as an easy language to learn as Python or JavaScript or something like
Agreed.
that. But it is closer to the hardware form factor to where when you got memory intensity, you're going to probably be in C++ to deal with it, because Python's abstraction layer or level that it's at isn't going to get that far down into parallelizing, serializing all, very efficiently the way C++ can. So the government has been looking to actually get rid of C++. So, but if an AI agent can actually get to write a compiler within 2 weeks and then focus another 2 or 3 weeks to making it even more secure, right? A lot of things that are still running on
Okay,
C++.
I'm gonna pause you for a second. I feel like the last mile on this will not take 3 weeks. It might take 3 months.
It might take 3 months. Okay, but still, what we're looking at is the people that actually did it spend a lot more time. And remember, go back to that. What was that chart? What was that chart that you had shown earlier? The
meter,
meter. If we were to take that and compare it to where these guys were, and what they did, I would say that it'll be off the chart. It won't be that 1-to-3 ratio or whatever that was given. It's going to be way higher than that, which at that point, it's making a huge statement. It wasn't the fact that it made the compiler. It wasn't the fact that it was C++ compiler. That's trivial.
Yeah.
But what was non-trivial is the time and the cost. The cost itself, the budgeted cost. So what has happened is artificial intelligence is showing us in the market that it's deflationary. It's not inflationary. It's a deflationary technology. It's going to bring the cost down.
Very good point.
And it's bringing the cost down of knowledge-based skills, right? So where are humans going to fit into this, and where do they have to sharpen themselves in this new economy where AI is going to be driving and doing a lot of knowledge-based skills? Not even because right now it can't do plumbing, it can't do carpentry, it can't do some of those skills, right? Some of those mechanical skills because of the dexterity, robotics, and we have a legacy grid system. If you throw any of these robots on it right now, these things might go an hour, 2 hours tops. And you just, right now they're just folding clothes and doing dishes at best, or cleaning toilets. I seen something in China that was very unique, cleaning toilets. So I mean, they're not there yet. But I would say that Anthropic is making a bold and big statement. And I think it leans into what the CEO of Anthropic was saying, that I think he was saying 6 months, maybe this year.
Yeah.
Most of the coding is going to be done.
Yeah.
Most of the code is going to be written, and it's not going to take long.
In their organization, just to add one data point to that, what Derek is saying is that in their organization, I heard that most of the top engineers in Anthropic don't write code anymore. No. I mean, they're doing planning. They just drive. They orchestrate clouds.
But their outputs. So I think in that same what you brought up earlier in this conversation, which we need to pay attention to, is that the output has increased significantly. So there's a cognitive load still there. They're just able to do more, right? They're able to do more in less time, but they're still spending more time. So AI is definitely filling in time much more efficiently than human beings can do, right? To get more work done. So we are doing more work, but we're doing that at a deflationary or a discounted price, or artificial intelligence is doing that at a discounted price. So what we got to really factor in is we're already on a precipice of a new economy,
right?
And the whole world isn't experiencing this this isn't ubiquitous all over the world. There's different countries that aren't as caught up as where we are, right? And even within the United States, some of the cities aren't even on the same
but it has a tendency though to flatline though. I mean if you look at India has a tremendous usage of AI, and Africa as well. And Africa has an infrastructure problem. I have a team in Africa, so I deeply understand some of the challenges they have. But the AI adoption is skyrocketed. And I mean, that's why they're creating a different plans. They're all setting up an office. So there is an there is an equalizer in this technology. It's democratizing the opportunities for everyone, if you will.
Yeah, but it's definitely stratified, right? Stratified.
Yeah.
It's not ubiquitous. It's not clean. It's not flatlining, and it's all going to be contingent on that infrastructure. Even here in the United States, we suffer to where it's an energy is becoming an inflection point for how
Right.
fast this technology can actually go. And I think
Right.
that's why it's going to become more apparent that we need to
Right.
scale. We're scaling up, but we need to scale down
Right.
as opposed to scaling up, which means we need to start looking at the silicon that we already have. Are we, make it more reusable? That means shrinking the models, deal with more
Mhm.
neural intelligence instead of just
Mhm.
one model trying to do everything, be good, a general model that's trying to do everything and be really good at it. We
Right.
can have
Right.
real specialized neural models. So neural
Mhm.
intelligence is going to have a huge role to play in this new economy moving forward because
Right.
we have to repurpose the silicon that we already have and
Right.
start
Right.
deploying these models to the silicon that we already have. Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think another reason I felt like this story was worth mentioning, not to mention how cool it sounds. I mean, they definitely went for a cool factor because they find, hey, what's the most complicated thing we can do? Hey, maybe we can build a C compiler. I mean, nobody's going to do that on a weekend project. Let's try that, right? Uh, that goes back to cursor building whole web browser from scratch. Building web browser is non-trivial, right? And we talked
Mhm.
about this when we met last week.
Mhm.
They're not using Chromium wrapping something. They build a rendering engine from the scratch. Will you use that browser? No, I'm not going to use that browser. But that just to demonstrate, to show that capability of some of these tools. If you are not, maybe this is a good way to end this. I know we have a bunch of stories, but we're over an hour here. But this is a good way to end this. If you are a skeptical software engineer out there who have tried these tools before, I'm summarizing all these stories together, and I thought, nah, this is not going to make it. This is a hype cycle. I would highly, highly encourage you to take a look at this. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying this going to replace engineering. I was joking about this. Is not. It's just going to empower you to do all this stuff. If you're not tapping into these tools and technology and figuring out how you can leverage them, you are definitely missing out. Right? This and some of these examples demonstrate that if you push this to the limit, they're pushing Claude to the limit of saying, how much I can get out of this, right? And if we can get even a 90% of GCC test cases running, that's what I saw. That's really, really impressive. Really, really impressive. That means imagine what you can do with these tools. This also goes back to something that you and I talked about this a lot. And fundamentals of how we build software is drastically changing. That means one guy pushed back on LinkedIn, right? Recently posted about this. How they were able to do that, right? They were able to do that because GCC had exhaustive test suites. They have exhaustive test suite compiler. So all these guys had to do to Claude is just, hey, make sure you pass this test suite. Because this tools needs feedback, right? It was not build a C compiler and go to sleep and come back in 2 weeks. It was not that, guys. They had a huge test suite that Claude was going over and over again to validate. So if you can figure out how to validate your software, you can build that software. That's where we are right now. Do you agree?
No, absolutely. I think that is a pivotal point when
Yeah.
building software. And I think a lot of vibe coders in particular may overlook the importance of the validation of those functionalities.
Mm.
That's how we end up with the open claw, which was the Moltbot
It's really, really open, guys.
it's really, really open. but but that's where the expertise, understanding the principles of software development is going to come in and become really pivotal. Pivotal. I think what's going to happen is we're going to get a shuffling of, as AI is doing 80% of the heavy lifting, that 20% is going to be strategically positioning, strategically solving drift, and knowing that.
So,
That's where.
if 80% of the jobs is done by AI, what do you think is the responsibility of software engineer now?
So I think that's going to move. I think we talked about this, and I think you're absolutely right. It's going to move into an observational engineer, but an engineering strategist, right?
And ensure the product you're releasing works, right? I mean, your responsibility to making sure the software works. You cannot, just because AI is there, you just cannot vibe code and build something and push it to PR. That's not responsibility. you're still professional. As a professionally responsible, it is that output that you're producing works, right?
Yep.
And,
So
and
I think it's going to, like you were saying, it's this. They're going to have to become more generous in across disciplinary
oh, that's
interdisciplinary. Hold on. What's the word I'm looking for? Interdepletion. Anyway,
interdisciplinary.
yeah, it's I almost messed you up, right? But
Yeah,
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 across the different domains of
yeah.
software development, all the way from product conceptualization to getting the product to market, and if and that's what we're going to see is it's going to be a shuffling around of positions. It's not going to be a get rid. It's just getting rid of those jobs. It's going to be offloaded. Heavy lifting, clerical stuff is going to be offloaded to AI. But the strategy of how to even keep it in market, go to market, and all that stuff is going to come and fall upon human beings to figure that
Yeah.
out.
So Jen, I think you're right. I mean, this is my observation too. I think generalists are doing better with these tools, even though all these years we've been taught, some of us, specialize, right? I mean, I think going just bring it home saying, I mean, if you're a back-end engineer and to just to say I just do Python, nothing else, I would little bit challenge you saying you have to evolve a little bit. You have to go beyond. You just cannot say I do Python, because guess what? These models are getting really good at Python as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. That's a great way to end this session. So thanks for joining. I don't know how many people join. I'll get better as we go through. A little bit more organized. But thanks for joining in. This will be posted. And thanks, Derek. It was awesome. I will stop the
No, thank
recording
you.
now.
Look forward to talking next week.